I am currently surrounded by about $25,000 worth of super rare Jaguar XFR parts, and we have only paid approximately $3,000 for the whole lot of it. And that's not even the craziest part. $15,000 of that value was purchased for only $236. This just might be the craziest and weirdest buying experience I've ever had in my life. You will not believe the list of super rare Jaguar XFR goodies that we got for only $3,086.25. This all started a few weeks ago when I stumbled across a Kijiji listing for this set of brake rotors from a 2015 Jaguar XFR-S. And of course, they are not just any old brake rotors. A bunch of years ago, a whole bunch of people from the Jaguar forums got together and set up a group buy from a company in the UK called Wartech. It worked out quite fantastic because the brakes on the XKR, the XFR, the F-Type R, and I believe some of the Range Rover models are all the same size. The set of rotors was approximately $3,500 new, and they are extremely rare as best of my knowledge there was only one order of them done, and of course that is the order that these were a part of. They are super special for a whole bunch of reasons, and they have a lot of different things to offer. Of course, they are slotted and drilled for better heat dissipation. They are two-piece design, which again helps a bit with heat, but mainly with being lightweight. And they are actually directional. So if we take a peek, these two are for one side of the car, and these two are for the other side of the car, meaning each individual brake rotor has only one place where it's supposed to go. And the main reason for that, if we take a peek, we can see that the slots are directional, and each of these slots and drilled holes are correlated to channels in the rotor, which help dissipate heat and spread air throughout. It is quite fantastic. Most brakes do indeed have that, but usually they are vertical as they are designed to be either left or right. And in this case, what it means is we get a bit of air scooping going on to help dissipate much more air than a standard brake rotor does. Even though they are still the same size as factory, the factory brakes are absolutely massive, and all of those things we just mentioned should make a ton of difference. The main difference though being that these are supposed to be between 5 and 15 pounds per rotor lighter than the stock ones. That is an absolute insane amount of weight savings, especially for something that is unsprung and rotational mass. We got talking to the lovely gentleman from Calgary who had these available for sale, and it turns out he had a whole bunch of other goodies as well to sell from his XFR-S. The next thing on that list being this staggered set of custom spec'd and ordered BC forged wheels that are also extremely lightweight and should complement the brakes beautifully, getting rid of some unsprung rotational mass. I've got one of the rears out of the box for us here, and as we can see, they are this beautiful bronze color, and we'll get a bit of a reveal here for you, as these things are absolutely gorgeous. I am a huge fan of this color. I've always loved bronze wheels. There's actually a bit of two-tone going on here, as the inside of the spokes is a bit of a different color than the top of the spokes, but I think these should look absolutely beautiful on our XFR. Taking a peek at our specs here, we've got the rears here and the fronts here. The rears are a 20x11 plus 56, and of course they are a 5x108 with a perfect matching center bore to our car, as they've been custom spec'd specifically for the XFRs. Of course, it is the brushed bronze tint color, which I think is absolutely gorgeous, and I can't wait to see these on. If we take a peek, the fronts are 20x9.5 with a plus 45, and of course, all of the other specs are the same. Beyond just the super lightweight brakes and the super lightweight forged wheels, he also had a whole bunch of spare brake pads available. There is 3 sets of fronts and 2 sets of rears. He had an oil filter wrench, which is quite nice because it's something we don't actually have already, along with this beautiful super plush mat that is available from Jaguar for like $300 that fits in the trunk. And the last part he had to round it out was this beautiful leather and Alcantara custom wheel with the blue stitching that matched his XFR-S, and the actual carbon fiber shift paddles that are much larger than the stock ones and fit like OEM. The gentleman in Calgary was super fantastic to deal with, and I can't thank him enough, but we ended up getting all of these parts, which new value on all of them combined is around $10,000, and we ended up taking them home for $2,850 for the lot of them. Do not worry, there is an install video for that steering wheel coming. It's actually something I have recorded most of already, and that leads us into the next part of the story. I got most of the way through installing that steering wheel and recording that video before I realized that I'm kind of an idiot and didn't think about the fact that my cars are both 2011s and his XFR-S was a 2015. And the steering wheel is compatible from one car to the other, but we do need to use the steering wheel controls out of a 2012 or newer car because they physically fit different into the steering wheel. This led me to start searching for new steering wheel control buttons that would work with our new wheel, and this is where stuff starts getting really interesting. The Jaguar XFR-S is a very, very rare car, so the car that all of this stuff came off of was one of about 600 of them produced worldwide. They were produced for 3 years. There was 200 of them produced every year, and only 100 of those 200 were delivered to North America per year. So there's 300 Jaguar XFR-S's that were delivered to North America, and all of the parts from this came from one of them. It just turns out when we started looking for the steering wheel, we found a second one in Calgary at a local junkyard, absolutely destroyed. This discovery was made by complete fluke, as I called a junkyard looking for steering wheel or steering wheel controls from any 2012 or newer XFR with the same options ours had, and the guy told me, he's like, well, yeah, actually we have an XFR-S here. And I had to confirm with him a couple times to make sure he did indeed mean an XFR-S, not a newer R Sport or something else. And following that, I got digging to find out what all else they had left from this car. Unfortunately, the answer is depressingly little because they managed to destroy thousands upon thousands of dollars of parts from this Jaguar XFR-S, but we'll get to that in a second. Upon discovering what they did have left that was still supposed to be good, I tried not to let them know that I was too stoked because the price they gave me was absolutely fantastic, and I told them I was happy to send a deposit if need be, but I wanted things set aside, and they said that should be no problem. They'd have it done and send me pictures of all of my parts within a handful of minutes. Things got weirder and weirder as I talked to them over the course of the next 4 days, and every time I talked to them, they had some runaround story as to why they didn't have pictures of my parts, and they couldn't give me any straight answers to where my stuff was and what all was indeed there. The package of goodies that was supposed to include the steering wheel, as of course that's what we went looking for in the first place, the rear bumper and carbon diffuser, as the carbon diffuser on these cars is absolutely beautiful and super expensive. I didn't want them to hurt it, so I figured I would take the full bumper and diffuser assembly as one. And then of course the massive carbon fiber rear wing, which is huge and ridiculous but so cool from the XFR-S, and the matching trunk deck lid that already has the holes pre-drilled that it was already mounted to, so we wouldn't have to mount it to one of our trunks and we could just bolt on the XFR-S trunk and be good to go. After 4 days of bothering them a couple times a day only to be told, we'll send you pictures in a few minutes, every time I talked to them, I finally got some straight answers as to where my goodies were for these cars. As it turns out, one of the yard guys saw my pile of carbon fiber and goodies and decided he wanted to take some of those things home, even though they were already tagged with my name and marked off as sold. Eventually, when they fessed up, what they told me was that one of their guys had taken the spoiler home because he thought it would look good on his Audi, but he said, oh, don't worry, he's gonna be bringing it back and you will still get all of your parts. We'll even give you a slight discount more on everything you bought, as originally they told me $500 for the whole lot of it. After getting those answers, I just headed down to Calgary the next day. I figured there's no point in delaying this. Clearly this is becoming a bit of a mess. I'm just gonna head on down and get everything picked up. And when I got there, things only got weirder and weirder. I had confirmed that everything was set aside for me. He said, yes, it is all here. I have my eyes on it. Come on down first thing tomorrow morning and pick everything up. So that is what I did, but when I got there, a whole bunch of stuff was missing, including the wing, the rear bumper, the diffuser, and all of the trunk badging as well. Despite being told that everything was there waiting for me, when I got there, the only stuff they had set aside was the XFR-S steering wheel and the trunk lid absolutely scratched to hell from the spoiler being torn off in a manner that it wasn't meant to be. The badging had all been ripped off the trunk as well, which I was hoping to have still intact, and they told me was still intact, and everything was not in that great a shape. As we can see here, this wheel is absolutely filthy, and turned out to be a great reflection of the car. I ended up talking to the gentleman I had been discussing back and forth with over the phone that had been so dodgy and been unable to send me pictures of stuff, and it turns out when I got there, what he said was that he took some of my parts home so they didn't get taken by somebody else again, and he was hoping I was going to be later in the day, despite agreeing that I would be there that morning, and he said he needed to run home to go grab those parts, which was only about 10 to 15 minutes away. He said he was going to be back in 20 to half an hour, as he was just going to run straight there and straight back, so I figured I would wait around to get the rest of my parts. I ended up waiting around for almost 2 hours before he got back, and when he got back, the only thing left that he had for me was the beautiful carbon fiber wing. Of all of the parts to be included, this was far and above the most important, as we'll get to it here in a second, but I called Jaguar to see how much this was worth, and oh my lord, it was an absolutely absorbent, insane number they want for this spoiler. But at the end of the day, I understand why they want so much for it, because it is absolutely gorgeous, it is carbon fiber, it weighs absolutely nothing, and it came off of a car that cost well into the six-figure range, that was super rare, and was the only car that this wing came on. When I poked and prodded about the rear diffuser, the rear bumper, and the badging, they told me they'd give me a bit of a discount even further, but they got really weird and they wouldn't answer any questions. They got really skittish and just didn't really have anything to say. They told me, oh, we're not sure, we don't think we had the right stuff for you, even though they said they pulled it directly off that car. Maybe the guy took it, we're not too sure, we can't find it. It was really weird, but they had no answers whatsoever. I had taken my camera with me as well to try and do some recording and record what was left of that XFR-S in the yard, but they wouldn't let me take my camera into the office, and they wouldn't let me take my camera into the yard. One of the yard guys did take me out to see what was left of the XFR-S, and oh my goodness, it was so destroyed, that poor car. What was left of it that should have been good, the salvage yard managed to ruin anyways. Of course, because it was an XFR-S, I was interested in taking any and all goodies that were still left that were good and would be upgrades for our car, but it turns out everything else that was left that should have been good, they either wanted ridiculous amounts of money for or had destroyed in the process of storing it. As I had mentioned, when it was the diffuser and rear bumper, the badging, the trunk and carbon fiber spoiler, which were supposed to be together, and the steering wheel, we had agreed to pay $500 for the whole lot of it. Throughout the process, because they removed all of the badging, scratched the hell out of the trunk, and a lot of the parts weren't included, they gave us a bunch more of a discount, and we only paid $236.25 for the steering wheel, the trunk, and the wing. I called Jaguar to find out some pricing with the VIN, of course, that they gave me from this car, to see what they wanted for the trunk lid, the wing, and the steering wheel, and the prices were absolutely insane.
What are you looking for?
Some kind of unicorn stuff, looking for price and availability on a new trunk lid, a new wing, and a new steering wheel.
Oh, holy cow. Alright, expensive unicorn stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Yeah.
Trunk lid panel is $2,913.24. Spoiler is $11,566.35.
Okay.
And the red stitched wheel is $37.80.18.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Have a good one.
You have a wonderful day as well. Thank you. That was unexpected. That's the second time I've made this call to Jaguar, and the first time was to a different dealership where I got the prices that are in all of my numbers on my board, but I accidentally deleted the footage of that conversation with them, so I figured we'd make a second call to a different Jaguar dealership to see what prices they'd give us, A, and B, so I had a conversation recorded to show that I'm not entirely crazy, and that is indeed the prices that Jaguar wants for these parts. What I didn't expect was the fact that, as we just saw, they gave us even higher prices this time around than the last dealership did last time. We're going to go onward with the prices that the dealership gave us the first time around, even though they are lower, but that is absolutely nuts. So that is where we end up with our $25,000 figure. And it's crazy because this doesn't even include taxes, which at least on these three parts are included. These are all numbers I got from the gentleman in Calgary on what he paid originally for these parts. Of course, we've got our $9801.99 for the wing, which is absolutely insane that with tax, that wing is over $10,000. We've got $2468 for our trunk lid, and of course, the trunk has the hinges, the lights, the back bar that looks much better than the 2011 one, and a handful of other things that wouldn't be included, but for sake of this list here, we're just going to leave it at that number, which is $2468.85. The RS steering wheel, which wasn't available, but she was able to give me a price at $3203.54. All of the pricing for the rest of this stuff is what we got from the gentleman in Calgary as what he paid new, being the wheels were $4,500, custom ordered from BC Racing. The brakes were $3,500 for the rotors, and we assigned a value of approximately $500 for the multiple sets of pads, and included in that kind of being that oil filter wrench. The custom steering wheel and carbon fiber paddle shifters were approximately $750. The trunk mat, again, it was approximately $300 from Jaguar with his car new. And of course, the lug nut kit being the last thing I have not yet mentioned. These are needed to install aftermarket wheels. Those lug nuts are worth approximately $150, and when we look at what that gets us to, that is $25,174.38 worth of aftermarket and stock super cool goodies that we're going to be able to put on our XFR. We paid total $3,086.25, which is an absolute insane deal, especially when you consider that this, and this account for approximately $15,000 worth of that value, and we only paid $236. Sure, the salvage yard may have kind of sorted destroyed some of it in the process, and we quite literally got a discount as they destroyed the parts in real time, but it is what it is. After we wrap this trunk, it shouldn't be too bad, and it should clean up all right. It's going to look so much better from the rear with the double light rather than the single as what's on the trunk of this car, along with the black differently shaped bar here instead of our chrome one that is across the back of the car right now. Everything we have managed to collect today should go a very long ways for us to make this car phenomenal and gorgeous and oh so much fun to drive when we get it back on the road. But for now, the last thing I want to do with you guys is take a peek back at our board. As last we had left off, our running total was at negative $2,209, being that we had been paid $2,209 to own one car and two car exactly as they sit right now. In the last video, we removed the engine, and there's also a few other things from this car / these cars that we have sold, and we've got some numbers to update here on our board that get us to a new running total of being paid $7,547 to own the cars as they sit right now, which is very, very cool. Of course, we had originally purchased this car for $11,000 Canadian, got a used gearbox from our salvage yard, did a whole bunch of other stuff, and gave some power adders to the car, and that had left us at $17,458 spent on the build to have this car at version 1. With a $13,667 hail payout from insurance and an $18,994 salvage payout after we managed to hit a coyote and ruin the front of this car. We bought the salvage back for $6,144, and that had left us at a negative $9,009 figure, being that we'd been paid that much more to have this car as it sat. We then ended up purchasing our second XFR, which is the chassis we see here, for $6,800 as a happy, healthy, running, driving car, and since then, we've pulled it completely apart, sold a bunch of stuff, and prepped to take the engine and powertrain from this car and put it in that car. We still have a ton more parts to sell / utilize in putting this car back together, but up to current, we sold the high kilometer engine from this car. We sold the Forged Star wheels with our Pirelli winter tires because we got the BC forged wheels instead. We sold the front brake pads and rotors from this car, of course, because we have good stuff on this car and the new stuff we just bought, along with the mass airflow sensors, a couple other intake parts, and there are a few things in the works, but nothing else has sold just yet. The total of all those sales came to $8,420, which when we add that in and account for our $2,850 spent on the stuff from the gentleman in Calgary, and our $236 spent on our stuff from the Junkyard XFR-S, that gets us to our new total of $7,547 paid out to own one car, two car, and all of our new goodies as they sit. Thankfully, now that we have got all the parts we need, we can finish the install of our gorgeous new steering wheel, and that will be the next upload you guys see. And then we can get to the reason that this car is pulled in here, and we can take the engine and transmission and a whole bunch of other goodies from our low kilometer car and stuff them into our 240,000 kilometer chassis to get this thing beautiful, happy, healthy, pumping out an absolute ton of power and back on the road. Thank you guys so much for joining along with me. I appreciate it more than you know. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment some stuff down below. I always love to see what you guys have to say, the questions, and I'm open to any suggestions you guys might have. Have yourself a wonderful day, and I'll catch you in the next one.